Hey guys, welcome to episode 14 of the Game Get Dev Discussion Podcast. This is the official podcast of the Dynasty Empire. This is the podcast where I speak to industry people, veterans of all types, and we have an open-ended conversation and just discuss some topics about how they got into the industry, the knowledge they've gained from it, and anything of that matter. Today we have Kirill Tokarev, editor-in-chief of 80 Level. Very excited to have him on. First non-environment artist person, which I'm excited for. How you doing, dude?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. So I wanted to dive straight into this because I've got like a ton of stuff I want to go through with you because as up until now I've had artists on. I had Clinton on and I was quite interested in him because he's more of a business mindset, and I see you as a similar sort of person. You're sort of more entrepreneurial, which I'm really interested in anyway.
Sure.
So you mentioned, so you've been on Ross's podcast, so I'm not going to dive into the backstory too much. You covered that pretty extensively with Ross. But there's one question I wanted to sort of get into because it surprised me. I didn't know about you. Level 80 started off originally as like a game marketing news type thing.
Yeah.
What was the reason for that?
I guess there was no particular reason. I just thought that this was the direction that we should go because it was like most of the people were working in this type of, I guess, topic.
Yeah.
Right? So there was game industry biz, there was a lot of venture beat, there was some other spaces, and they were mostly doing like business development and business related news. And overall, there is kind of this idea that people like to read about money, let's say, right? So they are interested in learning how much did Witcher make or how much did the industry grow over the year. And people do like to read these kind of news, but apparently there's not I think the market for this type of content is already very saturated, and it didn't make any sense to go there.
Yeah. But do you think that might have been because I haven't actually seen any of the content from back then, so I can't comment too much on it. But what were you like? What was the specifics like? Was it the sort of an indie trying to actually release the content, or was it big games and how they market it? Like, what was the angle?
It was just I guess the general overview of how games are made and how are they published, more in that type of direction, right? So instead of going over the production of content, we would talk about how do you pitch a game to an investor, or how do you go on a self-publishing platform and promote it, and those kind of things, right? But the problem is that most people actually, they can't give specific advice on business related topics, right? Because it may seem like everything in business is very much structured and there is everything is going according to plan, but in reality it never does, and it's always a mess. So whenever you hear somebody talk about like, oh no, we did this like business plan and we conquered the market or whatever, it's total bullshit. I mean, that's just true, right? Because
Yeah.
it never goes according to plan. It always goes sideways, and you have just to juggle it as you run, and you're driving a bicycle. So this is sort of like how business works, I guess.
Well, I suppose you're a testament to that, aren't you? Because you said so you saw that wasn't working and you gravitated towards the art. Like, so you're a testament to that. Like, obviously one thing wasn't working, you reevaluated and you went, right, this is a better direction for us to take. Now I'm not sure what, it's sort of a double barrel question. It seems to me, as someone, I read all the articles that go on Level 80, they're sort of my lunch break reading material. The content tends to be heavy environment focused and sort of substance material focused. Is that from your sort of internal bias, do you think? Do you gravitate towards environment art, or is it something the market dictates? Because obviously the market dictated to you the
No, I
first
think
approach
it's
of marketing isn't the right thing to go, so you decided to go
yeah,
environment.
that's a good question. So in uh, my personal belief is that it should be versatile.
Hmm.
So we don't want just to show how to make textures with Substance Designer and that's it, right? We want to show that there is a variety of different workflows and you can use different tools. And more importantly, we want to showcase even not even a tool, but like new technology that is being developed or something. Like that's why I'm a big fan of like SIGGRAPH,
Mm.
GDC, so I could go there and just check out what people are working on, see all the cool demos there, because it's just like it's something to behold because it's super interesting.
Yeah.
Coming back to your question, I think the market obviously dictates us what, because we talk with the artists, right? And the artists use certain number of tools, right? And if the majority of them use Substance Designer, right? So we can't go around it, but we pretty much have to talk about how you do materials with this software. But I don't want it to be very stale and only one topic focused, right? So I want to have different kind of ideas, and we do encourage like people to share. Whenever I talk with someone, I ask them to share like what was the unusual thing that you did here, like what were the mistakes that you did there and stuff like this, right? So we could see how they were sort of like going around this artistic goal that they were pursuing, right? And they're using all kinds of different pieces to put that all together and build an environment. As for just being dominated by environment, so we started mostly as an environment kind of place, right? So we mostly covered environment art because I think environment art is a very cool. It's like this very cool bridge between you wanting to make a game, right, and you building this little vertical slice. Because environments are great for demoing how the entire game is going to look like in the future, right? So you don't have anything, you don't have any levels or anything, you don't have even mechanics, right? But you can just build a very nice environment, build a character, and just give him like an idle animation, and it's going to look like a game.
Hmm.
So I think that's why our interest in environments come, because primarily, like at the very core, we are a very game development centered place, right? So we want to show how do people actually approach game development, and obviously environment is part of it, but it's also a very nice like flashy part of it, right? So you could show it and people will look at it and say, hey, I can do that, I can build a game like that that's
So
gonna look like this and stuff.
so
Yeah.
it's interesting because I was thinking about before the podcast I was thinking about this quite a lot because I was thinking environment's obviously popular, and I know you said you originally started out that way, but that was the direction you decided to take. But I was thinking everything's dictated by marketing, and I thought, well, why would environments be more popular? And I was really sort of trying to figure this out. And I don't know what you think about this. Do you think it have anything to do with the fact that environment is almost more technical and you need to learn a lot of tools? Because if I think of a character artist, I'd take any of the big character artists on the planet. They are amazing sculptors in ZBrush, and they have this unbelievable talent, and they have an unbelievable talent for like the texture of that. But it is so. I'm not saying it's less technical, but compared to like an environment, where an environment you need to know like modeling, low poly and high poly, all the tools that come with that, engine stuff, shaders, substance designer, all these things is like a lot more little bits to learn. Whereas, character art is sculpt a kick-ass character and texture a kick-ass character, and it's super like, I don't want to say one-dimensional because that's not fair, but you know what I mean. Like, you don't
Yeah, I
learn
know
so
what you mean,
much.
but I don't actually agree with you. So
Do you not?
I don't think that uh, like one is more technical and one is more complicated, the other is less complicated. Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you see characters which are like, God, I mean, there's so many layers there. Just
Yeah.
doing a very nice zebra sculpt is not going to cut it, right? People are just adding more stuff and more stuff. I think the whole industry like game development industry is very technical,
Mm-hmm.
just because of the limitations of the processors like GPUs and stuff. So you have to do this low poly stuff, and you have to add like a bunch of other technical limitations to your model and still make it look good. So basically, this fight for looking great and at the same time uh, making it very like low poly and make it run in your software, right? So this is the main idea behind game development, and it touches both like character design, VFX, environment art, everywhere. It's just maybe environment art just is bigger in
Mm.
general, right? So to build a level, so first you build a level, then you give it to environment artists, and then environment artists just spends hours like building props, doing trim sheets, like building materials, adding vegetation. It's just like a lot,
Yeah, so you think
right?
it's because it's such a broad topic that it just seems
Yeah,
like there's more.
but at the same time, if you take a character, right, there's still a ton of work to do there, right? Because you need to do like clothes, you need to do like weapons, you do hair, you need to add some like magical VFX
Hmm.
on it. So there's also a lot of work involved. So I can't say that one is more complex and therefore it is more interesting to read about, and the other is less complex.
I mean,
No,
not so much complex. I think complex is the right. I probably worded that poorly. In terms of like, so using Unreal Engine is a really good example. There's a couple of little things you can do when you're putting together a scene that will help take your scene from like a C minus to a star. If you get the fog just right using volumetric fog, there's a couple of things you can do, like little tricks. I feel as if there's not as many easy tricks in character art. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
maybe in this way, yeah.
Also, maybe I'm in a
But
bubble as well because I am
again,
an
like
environment artist.
Unreal is such a big
Mm.
thing, right? We think about it in terms of like uh, basically putting things together, right, in the environment and doing lighting or whatever, right? But it's so much more. There's so much more than just the render. There's like systems, there is gameplay, there is a bunch of that additional stuff that is also in the game. So that's why whenever I really like to talk with developers and ask them why they choose this or that particular like platform to build on, like Unity or
Mm-hmm.
Unreal or CryEngine or whatever, right? And I encourage them to ask to tell us like mm, what is outside of this graphical thing that you're interested in, right? So I'm very interested in how they're doing like inventory. How do they
Yeah,
work with the camera? How do they do with all those little things, like how they do economy in their game, because it's all a part of this big puzzle of game development, because it's never just the visual aspect. There's a bunch of other
yeah.
stuff as well. So and I guess that's what we're trying to achieve, sort of like in some of the articles that we're doing.
I think
That
it's
we,
not just trying. You're achieving. Trust me, You are achieving that. Believe me. But
yeah,
it'd be interesting to see more of that. Like you just mentioned economy. I don't have the chance to speak to many designers in that aspect. The ones who do that sort of that part of design. So that'd be really interesting to see some articles on that sort of stuff. There's sort of
yeah,
like the
yeah.
non-graphical
That's
stuff.
again, that's because it's a very closed topic.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and it's a very I mean,
Well,
polarizing topic. Let's put it this way,
well,
right?
that's where the
Because
competition is, isn't it? Because like if you work out a really good economy for a game to make lots of money, you don't want to be shouting about, "Hey, there's this really great idea we have for economy," because then
absolutely,
someone else uses it.
overall, I just see that doing economy in a game is incredibly complicated. Because if you look at the game, I mean, if you look at Witcher 3, so Witcher 3 is a great game, great looking game, and there's gameplay, story. It's just like a movie for me. But just the economy there inside it just doesn't work. It just doesn't add up. It's a mess. And they
Mm.
did a very nice talk about it in some of the events. But I do think that it could be done in a better way. And there are people who are doing these like I don't remember the name, but we talked with them at the Gamescom last year, I guess, and they were doing this crazy space economy game. So basically, it's like EVE Online, but you don't actually fly a ship anywhere, just buy and sell stuff
Oh
from
wow,
one
okay.
particular. Yeah, this is a very crazy idea. And man, those guys are really into it. They're like they're just doing hundreds of spreadsheets, like
Mm.
Excel formulas and stuff. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting topic. And again, I think it sort of like for 80 level, it's just one showing you like one part of the puzzle of game development. So just showing you different parts of this process in general. So if you so we want to try to add more of that. So when we're working, we're trying to add more different topics and stuff like this. Problem is that we're not sure that people would be interested in learning more about it, right?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like, it'd be something where there'll be like a niche amount of people who would find it
Yeah,
fascinating,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then
It
there'll
would
be
be
the
like
majority like, I just want to
five.
learn how to make materials, man.
Yeah, and especially if you take into consideration the amount of work that needs to be involved, right? So we need to spend like maybe a month doing something like this, and then publish it, and then nobody actually reads
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of discouraging.
Just to get your thoughts on just talking about economy. It just sprung to mind. You mentioned The Witcher. Do you think, and you may have a better insight to this because I've not actually ever spoken to anyone about economy, and it's the first time I'm actually sort of thinking about it. But the first thought that comes to mind is, do you think the single player offline games probably suffer more from it than online games simply because if you get it wrong, it isn't the end of the world. But if you get the economy
Yeah,
wrong on a multiplayer game, that's make or break for the game.
that's totally true, right? But the advantage we have with online games is that we can always tweak it. Like we can tweak it on the go.
True.
We can see how it works. Because one of the best examples, and one of the oldest one, but it's still one of the best one, was Ultima Online,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because when they were killing, I don't remember. I think they were killing wolves for wolf pelts or something, and then they were selling them, and then they figured out that they can actually sell them for a very nice number. So they just destroyed all the population of wolves in the world, right?
That's
So, but
amazing.
that's the beauty of like games in general. So game is just like a simulation of your of some little world that you have, and it works on so many levels and just goes beyond economy and just shows what like humans are. I think
Yeah.
that I think games are just like this mirror where you look at yourself, and some of the like two best examples I have in this term is online game. It's like I think it's DayZ,
Mm.
and DayZ is like this. It's an incredible example of what's going to happen if you're in this situation. What kind of person are you going to be, right? And I would say that like in majority, like I think 90% of people, they just act like they normally would in any kind of environment, right? They would just be decent,
I
nice
don't know about
people.
I don't know about DayZ, man. DayZ brings out the worst in people, man.
Yeah, but in DayZ they just start like this crazy thing. They're just robbing, and I mean there is like I saw some of the videos. I'm not that much of a big player, but it is kind of scary, I guess, in
Dude,
a way.
you need to. There's a book by George. I think it's George Orwell. I think it's. I can't remember which one is. It talks about this. It's either Animal House or Animal Farm. Sorry, or
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
the one which talks about? Oh no, sorry, it's Ordinary Men. Ordinary Men. And
Uh-huh.
it talks about like how a normal upstanding citizen could become an Auschwitz guard, and how like moral
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
virtues deteriorate. Daisy shows actually. Now you mention it, I loved Daisy back in the day when it first came out. It does show that exact mentality. Um, but you just come back to economy again. You know, I've just remembered. Did you play much RuneScape?
No, I didn't.
I have memories of literally sitting in the bank. I've just gone and farmed like a load of wood, and I'm just selling like the stuff. And there was a genuine economy on like, you know, like how the real world works. I will go do some labor, and I'll sell my stuff for my labor for money, and like it worked. Like it was a functioning economy, but it's a natural one as well because it wasn't determined by anybody. It wasn't like the bot says this piece of wood's worth this much. It was players determined it, and it was just such a crazy like sort of natural evolution. You've just got me thinking about economy. It's super interesting. This is a rabbit hole, dude. You've just opened up a tin of worms there. What do you I just want to move on to one thing as well, and I'm not sure how. I don't want to put you on the spot with this because it's kind of an awkward question. I speak to a lot of recruiters. I speak to a lot of senior artists, and for them, if they see a level 80 article on someone's Artstation, I don't want to call it a seal of approval, but it means a lot. The recruiters who I've spoken to said if I see a level 80 article, people obviously like it enough to want to look at it, so it's got to be half decent. And I was interested because I was thinking then, did you expect level 80 to become this? And two, are you conscious of it? Do you feel any responsibility? Like, that you can't just, obviously, I don't want to say dish them out, but like, these level 80 articles have weight to them, if that makes sense. Do you ever consider that or think about that?
Well, to tell you the truth, we never actually thought about it in the beginning, right? So we just wanted to push something out there and see how it goes. But I guess the main thing is that we don't just want to publish something very mediocre, let's put it this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we are publishing something, we want to at least look good, and show a certain amount of skill. Let's put it this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not 80 level material, let's put it this way, so we're not going to publish it. And I understand recruiters, that for them it's just like an easy sort of like filter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you go on Artstation, you have to browse through them, right? You have to look at their portfolios, and on 80 level, everything's sort of like cherry picked for them, so they just can have a look at it and figure it out.
Do you think it's good? Do you think it's good that recruiters do that? Or is it a case of I can't blame them? It makes their lives easier.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's just a part of the process because they do a lot of other work as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like one part of their process.
Does it ever affect you, like when you're picking? Someone says, "Oh, I don't want to put this work up," and you're like, well, does it ever come into your mind like this? I don't really know how to. Well, maybe I suppose like you said, it has to be like a level 80 quality standard to it, so you can't just give out you can't just do them willy nilly. But it's just interesting. Yeah. Like, it doesn't really enter your mind in terms of this guy is gonna have or girl is gonna have this article on their Artstation, and people are gonna see that as a tick in a box, a feather in the cap to potentially get a job. You just see it as, is this work good enough? Yes or no. It is fine. Yes, whatever comes through, it comes from it.
That's how I look at it. I just look at the work. I don't actually think if the person, like what he's doing with his life, if he's gonna tick a box or not. I mean, it's good for him. I mean, whatever.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But for me personally, we're just looking for a very nice work, and we want to showcase good work and hear people talk about it. That's our main goal, right?
What sort of stuff attracts you? It's just speaking about that. You said you don't care what the person's doing in their lives. What attracts you? Like, is it technical skill, originality, just sheer beauty? Like, is there anything that really catches your eye?
I think the thing that actually catches my eye is the artistic, let's put it, eye, right? So if it's artistically interesting, then we will probably approach a person, right? Because if it's a very well done dark corridor, and you can't see anything there pretty much, right? I will probably not approach you. But if I see something that looks interesting, and there's like this composition, and there's like a bunch of stuff going on, and there is pretty lighting, and you showed some interesting materials, then we can probably send you an email. because you like the article you see on the website, right? And you look at the process and you figure out, oh wow, there's like he did a lot of like procedural materials or something, right? So I don't see this like from the image, right? We only figure this out after we've talked with the artist. So the
Mm.
image is like the primary spot for us. So we
Right.
start from any the image has to look nice. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, so you can't. So the technical skill is almost irrelevant. The end piece looks great, and if so happens to be that there's some really clever skill gone involved into making that, all the more
That's
better.
usually the case, right? Usually, if it looks good, you feel like okay, so we might talk with them, and then it figure when you have the conversation, you figure out that there's like a whole bunch of very complicated technical solutions used there. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Everything is like connected.
Do you keep your eye out for anything? So like something that's become quite popular. Well, I say become quite popular. It's becoming more and more in the public eye. It's stuff like Houdini, Blender since 2.8 took a big kick. Do you, as a from a business point of view, go? Do we keep our eye out for these mediums, these softwares, people doing stuff in them because this will be beneficial to 80 level? Because it's obviously relevant right now, so people are going to click because they want to learn more about Blender or Houdini. Do you keep your eye out for that, or does that not even come into the equation?
Mm, that's a nice question. I think we look out for whatever is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So we're interested in um, all types of different tools that are on the market, or all types of different techniques that are on the market. So Houdini probably one of them, right? But there's a bunch of other stuff going on. There's a bunch of like simulation, a bunch of AI powered tools, which are also great, right? So I don't think we make these decisions based on the software. We make these decisions based on the final result, right? Let's say I know that people are interested in VFX, right? So we want to approach some people who are doing interest in VFX, whether they do it with Cinema 4D, Houdini, or Popcorn FX, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I'd love to see more VFX artists on level 80, 8 level, sorry, because I mean, I'm trying to get VFX artists on the podcast because it's a weird, it's one of the most, it's a bit of a cliche, but it's like one of the most beautiful bits of game art, you see? You know, it's all, like, there's so much to it, the colours, you know, I mean, I'm talking more from probably the League of Legends style VFX, but something I've noticed of it is there's not a lot of resource online for it. You know, if I wanted to learn substance designer, I could literally Google substance designer tutorials and I'm bombarded with AAA lead and senior artists giving tutorials and breakdowns, and I can learn a ton. I find VFX there's far less resource online for it right now. Have you had much trouble trying to get people like approaching VFX artists to get them on 80 level? Because I want to see more stuff on 80 level from VFX artists. That's my one
I,
interest I have.
I think there is a very good forum which is called Real Time VFX. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
something like this. It's a wonderful place. You just go there and there's like a bunch of different people discussing VFX. Um, I think that VFX in games, especially stylized VFX, they are all done in the ways that they were done for a very long period of time, right? So if you look at stuff that is done in Dota 2, it is very similar to the way you do this stuff in Warcraft 3,
Mm.
right? Which was a long time ago. So don't think this. I mean, the process obviously evolved and stuff, but the core sort of like techniques, ideas are the same. While when you look at the substance designer, this is something that is completely new, right? So before that, substance designer people used to sculpt materials in ZBrush, right? That's a completely different take on this work, right? So I think the same thing is happening with Houdini. Houdini is adding a lot of features that were mostly available only for people who were working in the film industry, right? And now a lot of those tools are available for game developers. so they can use them, and they kind of have to learn more about them. That's why you see a lot of Houdini sort of like tutorials and stuff.
Do you think so? You just mentioned film. I'm just curious. Do you think you will branch 80 level out into getting sort of, rather than being purely game art, being more like 3D art? So you get people from who've worked on 3D films. People like like James Lucas, for example. He's working at Quixel, but he's worked on like Aquaman and stuff like this. Can you see yourself branching out in that direction? Getting more film, because film art and game art is slowly, they're getting closer and closer. I feel like slowly, but they're getting there. So do you think it's worth? Would you ever consider branching out into film, or do you think it's like, nah, there's too much to cover in games? We're just going to focus on games.
Well, we do cover like film, more or less, right? We did cover a lot of film at the beginning of our journey. So when we first started publishing those articles, we did interviews with people who were working on these big companies. But the problem with this is it is very hard to get approval on these types of talks,
Right.
because if you're doing a Marvel film, it is incredibly hard. I mean, right now maybe not so much, but a couple of years ago it was just like insane. You couldn't do it, right? Because you would have to go through their PR people and their lawyers, and it just drag forever, and you will never be able to achieve it, right? Plus, on a technical side, the artists, they can't actually talk a lot about how this or that was made. Again, in part because of the just like legal things, right? So they have certain restrictions that they can't share this information. And the other thing is that these big productions, they are, a lot of different companies work on them, and there is like a lot of outsourcing companies, and there is a lot of other people. So sometimes it's very hard to pinpoint like this shot was done like by 15 different companies, not to mention how many people worked on it. So I mean, it's a little bit complicated in this regard, but we are trying to work in this direction. We want to showcase all types of like technical art that there is. So we want to show more film stuff as well.
That's interesting. So do you think, could you see yourself doing like a 360 almost, and every now and then focusing almost back on the business side of it? So for example, with what I do with the podcast, like I focus on environment art because I'm an environmental artist. But eventually, I do want to get more and more people, such as yourself, more the entrepreneurial types. I want to get art directors. I want to get programmers, because the games industry is a very big place and there's a lot of different roles.
Yeah, true.
Could you see yourself sort of coming 360 and focusing less on art and going towards the other sides of stuff? So like, your programmers, business people, producers.
I don't think we're just gonna abandon art in general.
Yeah, no, not abandon. Like weave them in, like an article every now and then.
Yeah, it will be a part of our, like, it is a part of our DNA, and we will continue sort of like to work in this direction. But yeah, we want to have more people from different departments, let's say, taking part in the conversation, right? So we want to have programmers, we want to have people who are doing publishing, we want to have people who are doing music or sound effects. But again, sometimes it's just very hard to do a post with them, like an interview with them, because I met guys from FMod, GDC this year. So, and I wanted to do an interview with them, and then now we were going back and forth just for, I don't know, like 6 months, and they still haven't answered my questions, right? Because maybe they're busy, maybe they don't want to do it, maybe they don't do interviews, I don't know. So they have some of their own ideas about this.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's fair enough. I mean, I know what you mean, and it is a nightmare trying to get in touch with people and starting a dialogue and maintaining a dialogue. It is really difficult. Because the other side of it as well is there's certain people who I'm fascinated by. So a good one is Teddy at Quixel. Sort of people who create tools for artists. There are other people which I can imagine being absolutely fascinated to sort of read about from, say, A level, for example, talk to on a podcast, because they're sort of differently minded. I feel like this. It's sort of like how you are. Like, you're entrepreneurial, but you've got a creative eye. You are creative. You're still a creative person, but you go above and beyond that and sort of turn it into a business. I think them sort of things would be interesting for people to read about and see as well. I don't know if you've approached any of these sorts of people, the algorithmic founders, Wes McDermott, or people like this. Have you ever put any consideration to that? So the tool creators rather than the ground staff, so to speak.
Yeah, so we did a lot of talks with people from companies, right? From businesses, let's put it this. So we did the interviews with Teddy from Quixel. We did the interviews with Sebastian from Algorithmic, and basically we love to share this kind of, let's say, business insight into how these things work. Right now, we're doing a lot of this in terms of like asset sales, right? Asset production on like Unreal Marketplace or Unity and so on and so forth. Right, so we want to see how artists can actually make money with their art, or to show them new ways where they can sell it, promote it, and get some more money in the bank.
Well, these guys are interesting though, because I see it as, I mean, okay, I'm probably being biased because I'm an artist. I see it as like people who make games probably don't get paid their worth. Like, you think about the amount of training that goes into being an artist or programmer or anything like this, compared to like other industries. I don't think the salaries match up. But that's why I'm interested in stuff like what Clinton did with Decagon, JRO with the Jonas with the ZBrush and Quixel and Substance Painter alphas and brushes. Sort of taking that art and monetizing it to sort of, that sort of side hustle type thing. I think that's it. Like, I find that stuff amazingly interesting, because I think it's like you sort of need to get the value of what you do, like the amount of craftsmanship that goes into that sort of stuff. I find it really interesting. Like, if I'm guessing I'm assuming you've done an article with Clinton before, or you plan to, like, because he seems to hit the nail on the head with what you were just talking about with people creating.
Well, Clinton is doing an amazing job with his stuff, and he's doing an amazing job in finding the right people to do the assets, right? Because he's given them wonderful opportunity, sort of like to become part of this bigger story that he's building. How much money should they make? Are they making enough? I am not an expert to talk about this, but it's definitely, if you're entrepreneurial and if you want to make more money, you can definitely do that, right? You can definitely find new ways to monetize. You can find new markets, right? You can find new platforms.
I've seen three, so the three main types of people I've seen do this is like, you've got the absolute machines, and these people I have a lot of admiration for, who can work a 9 to 5 art job and then go home and then freelance, and that's how they do their side hustle, and they can just freelance and never a machine, and then people are very admirable. You've got, who we've spoken about, the people who monetize their art by making it as asset packs and this type of thing. And then you have like the last type, which are like the mentorship route, so people like Josh Lynch, Jeremy Estrelado, the whole coalition thing, that sort of lean on the same sort of thing, monetizing their skills and knowledge. I just want to come back to I don't want to talk too much about it or anything, because it's, like I said, it's icy territory. One more again, I get that, like, you work hard, you reap what you sow, but you think like putting more down to lower bracket, you imagine like salaries that like juniors get and mid-level artists. I always put it comparable to like labourers. I know a lot about labouring because that's what I used to do, and I always think, okay, you get paid say 250 to 300 quid for a day's work labouring. Does an artist who's been to university and has an incredible skill set and talented get similar at an entry level? Probably not. And that's where I draw the comparison. And I know it's different because art's one of the things you want to do. Labouring is like you sort of have to pay them a lot because you don't really want to do it. But at a higher level, I think salaries probably even out more, because if you're really, 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 really good, you rise to the top in a really competitive industry. That's fair enough. I just wanted to clarify that. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, all artists are underpaid. Like it's probably the mid to lower tiers I think are underpaid compared to the higher tiers. And if you disagree or I don't want to comment, no, that's fair enough. I respect that.
Actually, I have no idea. You have to understand. I come from a country I come from Ukraine, and Ukraine is a very underpaid. Let's say people in Ukraine are very underpaid on so many levels, and that's just not artists. It's just like doctors and teachers and people in so many other industries. So, I think it's a common thing in a lot of spaces, not just in game art.
That's it. So that's where like that's me as an a ignorant Englishman. I only know in UK. I don't know much about elsewhere in Europe. And now you mention, I have heard other people mention similar things from similar countries. Just want to come on to like one big topic as well. This was actually submitted as a question through the Dynasty Discord. Level 80, like it's at this. I don't want to call it a weird place, but it's at a crossroads. It feels like for me at the moment when I'm reading the content. You literally have the world, as you always say, go in any direction you decide you want to take. Like, say level 80 sticks around. I keep calling it level 80. 80 level sticks around for another 5-10 years. Where do you see it? Where do you want to take it in 5 years? Like, do you have this overarching goal or like destination you'd like it to be? Like, is it a social media platform? Is it, does it stay as a strictly news website, a resource website? How do you see it evolving over the next, let's say, 5 years?
It's a very good question. I'm not sure I can answer that because maybe I don't know. I don't know. So I would say this, that no matter what kind of direction the website goes, right? Because it's not just me making this decision. There's like a bunch of factors there, and a bunch of decision makers. I think what we still want to have there, no matter what's going to happen. Like, we still want to be selective, and we still want to show this 80 level work, right? So if you want to be on 80 level, no matter what kind of format it's gonna take, you would have to show some very nice artistic work skills. You would have to share some interesting information, something that is relevant. Like, so we want to stay true to our like core values that we have.
Okay, so you do think it's going to be like, whatever happens, we are strictly a news site and art showcase site. You don't see it ever going like, the socials route. Like a good example, Artstation.
Yeah.
Day one, it looks very different to what it does now. Same for, like, say, Polycount, where Polycount was and where it is now, two very different places. You don't ever see it taking that sort of, I don't want to call it social media because Artstation isn't a social media, but it's a more social platform. You don't ever see Level 8 taking that route. You see it being like, right, this is the filtered content of the best of the best that we deem, well, what you deemed the best of the best. You see it sticking like that.
I'm not sure. Like, again, these ideas about like social network and all that stuff, that's your ideas. I don't, I'm not able to comment on that.
Okay.
So, but I can tell you for sure that we are still going to be selective, no matter what kind of format that's going to be, right? So ArtStation is a more open space, right? So anyone can go on ArtStation and publish something, right? Polycount, maybe sort of like the same. And I just want to say that I still love Polycount. They haven't changed, but it's still a very nice place to go if you want to get some feedback or just to have a look at what other people are working on. But overall, I guess the general idea for us is that we want to be selective. We want to show a very high quality work, no matter what kind of format that is going to be, right? So if we're going to sell something, that you can be assured that it's going to be of a very high quality. If we're going to, I don't know, like publish a book or something, then it's going to be very interesting book about from like the best minds in this field, right? So I guess quality will still remain one of the core values that we have on 80 level.
I mean, I cannot agree more. One thing I will say is I hope it just stays and I use this word very specifically, like curated content. I think the more it stays that way, I think the better it will be, because I've really loved the fact that when I go to level 80, 80 level. I'm sorry, I keep I keep saying it the wrong way around.
No problem.
Every time I go to the 80 level website, I know I'm going to look at quality content. Like, I don't even go in like thinking, okay, which posts are worth looking at, which ones aren't. I know all of them are worth looking at, and I think that's actually probably why you guys still stand out to me out of all the sort of like places where you can view art content as my sort of safe go-to. Because like I said, on my lunch breaks, is go on the website, what new articles are out, and I can just go through any of them. I'll just go through them sequentially. Whereas other websites, like I go to Artstation, I still have to sort of look through it and filter out what I want to look at, what I don't want to look at. And I think that if you guys stick with that, that's music to my ears, because that's what I probably like most about the website. I've got one last question. This is kind of a weird one, because normally I ask people what they do differently. If they'd go back and all do it all again. Probably a bit of a different question for you. For people who, I don't want to say want to get their content on level 8 on 80 level. Not like that, but you obviously judge a lot of work and you deem it either worthy or not worthy. Yeah. Do you, if you had to give some advice to someone to go like, right, this is something I see a lot and I hate, and it really turns me off from art, or this thing which I see, this is golden. When I see this, I just think, yeah, this is great. Is there any advice you could give to artists? And I'm sorry, I know that's a bit of an on-the-spot question, but
it's a weird question to give to, especially to answer to an artist, like to tell them, to give them recommendations about their taste. It's just like, it's a wrong way to go.
Let's say recommendations. Like I suppose Jeremy gave some great advice once. He was like, if he sees what he called laser lines, where like two objects meet, if it's like a really sharp line where it's a razor sharp straight, he's like, straight away he's like, that's bad. He doesn't like it. It breaks the immersion. And it's like, that's a great tip to give someone. I just didn't know if there's anything like that where like if you see it, you either love or hate it, and it's like, avoid these trappings.
I think I can give. I won't be able to give you recommendations as good as Jeremy, because Jeremy is the man, and I'm not on a level even on par with what he's doing. But I just want to tell that if you're doing art, like no matter what kind of art you're doing, is it like environmental art, character art, VFX and stuff, it's still basically art, right? So it still has to be artistic. So whatever the tools you have at your disposal, you can think of them as just like paint and pencils. They are the same. So if you think about it this way, then you have to understand that the basics of your education as an artist are probably the most important thing that you will ever learn. So I think the basics that you need to learn, like the anatomy, composition, and so on and so forth, these are the core things that will help you forever in your career. Like they will stay there forever. Like if you know how to do very nice composition, your art will always be immersive, readable, and it's gonna look good, right? And no matter if it ends up on 80 level or it doesn't end up on 80 level, it doesn't actually matter, because the skills that you acquire back then, the knowledge that you will have about how art works in general, that will get you very far. No matter like what kind of new technical gizmo is going to appear next year and is going to change the workflow, you would still need to understand like how to work with colors and so on and so forth, right? So I think if you nail that, and if you understand how that functions, then all your like consecutive artworks, they're just gonna get better and better, because you will evolve as an artist. You will evolve in the knowledge of the tools that you're using. Like me personally, I'm a big fan of just landscapes, like landscapes on that artists do. And there is there's a very, very famous Ukrainian artist whom name, unfortunately, I have forgotten. But he's doing these very nice landscapes. He's sort of like this abstract painter or something. But the point is that he has this painting where it's just like white on white, and there is this thin line that sort of like breaks the image into two, and there's like a couple of black dots there, and it's called like something like winter in something something in some kind of place. And then when you look at it, you do look at it at first as an abstract, but when you spend more time with it, then it just evolves into like this bigger, huge landscape of a winter scene somewhere, right? So I think it's the same with any kind of art that you're doing. So eventually you will get to the point where just with one line or something, you will be able to create a very nice picture. But this will happen only when you're like on some like incredible high levels of your skill.
Dude, I don't know what you mean, mate. That's some great like advice. That's some of the best advice I've had of anyone so far. So I think you're on the same tier as Jeremy easily. Man, I want to say, I'm afraid we gotta wrap it up. It's been really interesting talking to you, man. Like this, you've made some really interesting points, and you've got me thinking on quite, especially economy. Like that's dangerous, man. Like I'm gonna be thinking about that a lot in the near future, because I've never put a second thought into it, and now I'm asking why. Why have I never even thought about this? Because it's so important. I appreciate having you taking the time. I know you're a super busy, dude. And by the way, if you find that artist, link him me, because I'm really curious to see what it is you're talking about, because that sounds like a really great piece to look at. But I just want to let everyone else know, below on the Twitch panels there is links to my Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Go there, follow, like, subscribe. All the support helps. It helps spread the word of the podcast and help people. There is also my Twitter. If you want to keep up with all the latest news and stuff for the podcast, go there. And if you want to go to the Dynasty Empire tab, look, it's a great Discord. It's full of artists who help each other. There's loads of critiques, feedback, resources shared, help troubleshoot problems. It's a great learning community. I really recommend going there and picking it up, because I know I've benefited a lot from it. I know a bunch of artists who've benefited from it, so I cannot recommend it enough. But yeah, we wrapped up. Kirill, dude, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting